Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to another edition of the Toxic Happy Hour, where we are toxic towards scams that delay the adoption of global sound money. We are toxic towards scams that delay a world of deflation and abundance, with your host, Publord.Hodl and Danish Hodl. But today, with a very, very special guest, one of my favorite economic thinkers, the author of this book, The Price of Tomorrow. My favorite because in Bitcoin, we talk a lot about deflation and why it's great. But Jeff Booth goes into great detail on the how and the why. And that's why I'm so excited to have Jeff here today to take the Toxic Happy Hour to another level. Jeff, welcome to the show. And what are you drinking today?
I got a Corona. It's 11 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not on a boat. I'm not camping, and I'm not in Mexico. So I have more than one Corona, so we should be good.
All right, I'll quickly jump in before Poppy here. I only have one Kentucky apple juice, unfortunately, but hopefully that will do. Poppy, what are you having today?
Well, down in Florida, but many times on boats and like that. And the joke is, lots of people, it's fine to drink before noon. You're just called a pirate when you do. But yeah. So today I'm just having. Well, I'm starting with an IPA, but I may switch it up to a Guinness next. We'll see.
I love Guinness. Jeff, are you a Guinness man? Do you like a well poured Guinness?
One. It's a meal.
Yeah.
Amen. It absolutely is. But Jeff, we're so excited, and so is our amazing chat that I'll be paying attention to as well. We pride ourselves of having amazing guests and the best chat in the space. We're very excited to have you here and hear some more from you about deflation. So I think maybe before we get into questions, it would be great to let you freestyle a little bit on what you think is important, how this is going to work out, and also what, if anything, in Bitcoin excites you these days.
That's pretty big start. So from the book, we're dealing with a structural change to society. Technology provides massive efficiency, and that efficiency is deflationary. And it's not whether I want it or not. That's a fact, right? Nothing is going to stop that. In the end, nothing's going to stop that, and that force is bumping up against monetary policy that requires inflation to keep the system intact. So it's so crazy that the world and actually that's why I align so much with a lot of the Bitcoiners, because I actually cannot believe that anybody could say this existing system should work. It looks like capitalism or a free market. Manipulation. The existing system fails spectacularly without manipulation. So if you're cheering for this existing system, you're cheering for more manipulation. And so, and everything else, all of the other second, third order effects that are bumping into society are out a function of this fight, of this fight between two giant forces in our lives, and we're all pawns inside a game.
Right. Go ahead, Poppy. You have.
Yeah, absolutely. This is tantamount to me. As I was reading this book, the movement from agrarianism into the industrialization of the world. Just how, to go from farms to city like that, upgrading the technologies. I'd like to look back and say, where was all this inflation hidden, and because you'll get the crazy CPI index, the shrinkflation, obviously over the years, when a half gallon of ice cream is now, 2/3 of the size. One part I got to the book, I was just glancing through, I remember the chapters, and it was a creative destruction. Now, I didn't know what it was going to be about at the time, but what I was hoping it was about was more about where I think they've really hide a lot of inflation is in planned obsolescence. The creative way they make these goods and services that, you know, like a cell phone that's perfectly good, maybe a little faster, but every 2 years you're doing it. Or cars. There was a story after World War II when the American soldiers came back. They all loved the Jeeps that they were driving because they were indestructible, easy to fix. Jeep went ahead and did that and found out they had a problem. The Jeeps were lasting too long. They couldn't get any repeat customers. So people started designing things just to break down at a certain number of times. So I didn't know what Jeff's thoughts were on planned obsolescence and how that fits in.
Yeah, well, so creative destruction, first I'll say this. By stopping creative destruction in the free market, by government reaching in and stopping, all that's happened is creative is moving to a monetary level, to an institution and monetary system level. So creative destruction is only moved. The existing entire system will collapse and be replaced. And we'll get into this, but I suspect very high that it'll be replaced by Bitcoin, because the change always comes from outside. Very rarely does a business do what they need to do to be able to thrive. Getting more specifically into your question, there is some of that for sure, but a free market solves that, because if a free market offers more value to you, whether it's length of time or anything else, or something that works better for you, you buy that instead. So at the end of the day, nothing can stop. If you just think about innovation and a free market, the result of innovation in a free market must be deflationary. It must allow for deflation. If you're growing new industries, it can be inflationary, it can grow. But if you're removing errors, technology, with what entrepreneurs are given, what we're able to do with technology today, to be able to solve other people's problems, only win when you solve other people's problems. The market looks like that. Otherwise, the business fails fairly and the capital goes away. So the result of a free market and innovation has to be deflationary, especially with technology. To the first company, it cost just over $5.5 million to develop the first phase of that technology that Shopify gives you for $50 a month today. And Shopify's $50 a month is way better technology than what that was. The rate it's everywhere. We just don't recognize it because the stimulation and the monetary easing is stopping it. So the specific point on planned obsolescence, on yes, there's a whole bunch of games within the game, kind of the big game. There's a whole bunch of games within the game to try to get people to buy your thing or to make more money. But at the end of the day, if you don't provide value to society in a free market, somebody will. It gets just margins can't be protected. Nothing can be protected. Somebody will.
I absolutely agree. It's really the free market is about, or capitalism is about giving people a choice. No one's being forced to anything. So, and if you give choices and if you can make money from that, it's because you've generated more value to that person, the buyer of the goods and service, than they see as the price, more value than the price. Otherwise, they wouldn't buy it. Jeff, so my take on the central bank is essentially that is creating, is really communism or socialism, because one half of the entire economy is made up of the payment, which is money. Well, money, because money can store value, but fiat currency cannot store value. So I call that dirty fiat. But half of every transaction is money, so it's quite an important commodity in an economy. It's half of it. And what we've decided to do in the West or around the world, including United States, is to have the price of money, which is interest rate, not be found by the free market, but instead being decided by a committee of 5-7 people in the Fed who is supposed to know better, and they get to decide it. And to me, that's what communism looked like, that you had committees deciding price of goods and services, and money is the most important because it's half of an economy.
and so what happened, and just keep in mind, any system tries to protect itself, right? So a lot of people in Bitcoin and elsewhere would say those people, right? And what you have to realize is, who are those people, right? They every single actor within the existing system will try to keep the existing system going for until they know. Yeah, I use that example of Blockbuster in the book. That's why change very rarely comes from within the system. It has to come, it's forced on the system from outside. It's not that the executives at Blockbuster were stupid. It's just they couldn't change the system from within. It required an entirely different operating, and so let's argue as if we're central bankers today. And what do we do? Or you're the president of the United States today. What do you do? Well, besides adopt Bitcoin, but what do you do? Because if you don't print money, the spectacular collapse of the entire financial system globally comes to fruition, and including banks and everything else. Everything fails, and you have a Great Depression worse than the 30s. Prices reset by 90%, and then you rebuild it on the other side. Right? That's because you've kicked the can and you've made the balloon bigger and bigger and bigger with each step. If you just said, "What do you do today?" That's what they're dealing with. So now ask yourself, will anybody not do what they think is required? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, I can't let that happen. Too many people get hurt, so I'm going to decide how it's going to look, right? And so when you understand it from instead of blame people, when you understand how a system will react, you can see no matter who the actor is in that system, it's going to look the same. That fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correct, I mean, central bankers really today have they have painted themselves in a corner. And if they were to do the right thing, we would have an immediate collapse because we would need to do an insane amount of deleveraging. So that would be immediately very painful. But if they're doing the wrong thing, they can delay the pain, but it's still going to get very painful. So they kind of only have the choice. They don't want to be in power at the time where the economy collapses. Is not good for their renommee going forward historically.
So and it's worth considering some of these tail risk outcomes, because that could actually happen. It's, I think, a really unlikely event. But there is actually a kind of the vacuum of power, more important than the economic system, the vacuum of power that emerges and people rush in to fill that vacuum of power if there's a total collapse, can be destabilizing, like obviously crazy. So, but and some of those tail events, while not highly probable, it's possible.
Right. So, Jeff, I have a question for you, because all Bitcoiners are excited about a deflationary world where money becomes worth more. It grows in value as the money supply is the same, but GDP grows. So our money will go further tomorrow, which is the scenario that you explained of abundance. I mean, that including all the productivity growth that just makes naturally with technology production cheaper and products cheaper. But in a sound money world, will salaries go up, or will they just drop slower than prices so that the real salary is still going up?
So salaries would fall too over time. But when you say fall, salaries are falling today. Real salaries are falling today. Right. So inflation, the other side of the coin of inflation is wage deflation. Right. That's what it is. I pay people less. I just hide that I'm paying them less. Right.
Agreed.
And they don't know better. So inflation is the most insidious tax of all, because remember what the tax rates were in the 60s in the U.S. They were 90%, and the U.S. couldn't pay for Vietnam and everything else, and there was inflation, but they had to change that, and they were tied to gold, and France wanted to be paid back in gold, and so they went off the gold reserve and went into an inflationary environment to be able to hide the fact that that inflation is a tax on the people with salaries, right? If you have assets, you benefit from it. If you have debt, you benefit from it. But it's a hidden tax on society. But and that comes in the form of wage deflation. So if you play that forward, you could drive MMT, you could drive a whole bunch of things and hide it further by pretending to pay people some money, by making up money and trying to drive inflation, being able to redistribute some of that money. Then, by the way, that's coming. And you could do that, and you could get jobs. And why would you get jobs? Because the labor component of that job actually goes down in real terms. So people will keep those dead ends instead of using technology to remove that part of the labor component, because it's a lower cost of the labor component in real terms. And so I'm not saying it doesn't work. It just works by manipulating people. And so now on the other side of that, what you asked is, now forget the reset and the deflationary depression that ensues because of a bubble of credit. That is not good deflation's fault. That's from kicking the can down the road. But let's say a normal world on the other side of that. We can't even measure that normal world. It's so hard, because to actually understand what that would look like, you have to live in that system. And so we'll talk about some of these things. What makes people really fearful of jumping to that system is all of their measurement is in a different system. So they're wondering how they can pay for their food, housing, school, everything else, and not understanding what it would look like on the other side. So thinking that they need enough money to be able to pay for all of this stuff, that all falls away in a different system.
But what I'm trying to get at, and I'm pretty sure that we agree on this, that in an economy or world of deflation, then prices of goods and service will fall. That's what we're talking about with deflation, and people's net or real salary is growing, right? So
exactly, your money is worth more, and it's constantly worth more, and your time is free. So why does the CEO use technology? Same reason you use technology, because it frees your time. That time saving comes with the labor component going down. No CEO puts in technology to increase their cost. They do it to add more value to society and make their whatever better. And there's a construct, I talk about it in the book, that people believe, because we live in kind of a false prison, and our beliefs guide, and that's looking backwards of what we've seen all our lives. And we very rarely look, okay, what does this actually mean? And is this all real? So people believe that, think about the kind of what inflation has done to us. We have to work harder and harder and harder, and more jobs. Jobs are super critical, and the economy constantly has to grow so that we can save enough money to retire for the last 5 or 10 years of our lives without going broke. Right. When it could look completely different. And all of the construct of everything that I just said is a matter of trying to, and now we're going to manipulate money supply to make sure that happens faster. So on one side, you hold asset prices really high, and they have to go higher. And on the other side, you have to give more money to people through MMT or socialism or whatever, to pay for the assets that you held high in the first place by printing money in the first place.
Right.
So there is no free, and so what ends up happening is there is no free market at all. It's all government. It's all state controlled.
Right. Yeah, that's the situation right now, and hopefully that will be replaced with potentially Bitcoin as money of the world. And I'd love to hear you later how you see the world. You know, what's the world going to be like with Bitcoin as a money? But I want to bring Poppy back in here because I've had him muted because of the pub background noise getting a little bit louder today than we had hoped for. But we want to bring it authentic. So, but Poppy, I want to give you a chance to speak now and ask a question if you have some.
No, absolutely. Great stuff. One of the things we talk about, we always talk about this free market will decide, and capitalism but at the end of the day, when you talk about everything is so controlled and contrived and corrupted now, is there really a free market anymore in your mind? What is truly free when certain industries get propped up and they can pick and choose which businesses survive? COVID really changed a lot of things for me when I'm looking at the companies that, or big corporations that are saved, mom and pops, just destined to die. And one of the things that that struck me in your book, which I think you made a mention once, one of the questions that people don't ask enough is, what industries are going to grow, and they always talk grow and which ones die. So for example, if you would have told me in January about Zoom, I probably would have put a couple dollars in there to watch it go, because this is definitely the future. And now you see restaurants that are operating, if at all, at a quarter capacity, half capacity. Out of all of this, I'm just curious what you think moving forward. Like, what are growth industries? So, for example, like with doctors, a doctor, I can see the technology is going to get to a point where I can just see a doctor from India and pay $5 worth, or whatever the value is at that time. Be able to put my finger in a scanner. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about some of the companies and some of what you can create today. Yeah, I think from the book. I'm involved in one of the companies that I mentioned in the book. 18 months ago, it started sales. It's now doing 10 million a month in revenue. 18 months. When you know how to construct companies to take advantage of network effects and data loops, and you do that in a way to take advantage of all the technologies. By the way, that's just one out of about 10 companies that I'm involved in that is having that type of rate of growth. So it's so powerful, and there's all sorts of opportunities. Again, I didn't write the book so I could go on a speaking circuit of book and everything else. I wrote the book because if you understand what's happening at that level and what I do in those companies and every other technology person does in those companies, you only win by creating value for society. And that win comes, if you add it all up, at a massive job loss. Massive job loss. And if you keep the system running like it is, you're going to run a barbell of the platform companies own the world and everybody else has nothing. That's what it'll look like. And why? Because what do you think you have to do in an economy? So let's use an example. So I'm the U.S. government, and I need to take interest rates negative. So I take interest rates negative. So as a CEO of a private corporation, let's say an airline that has a bunch of cash on their balance sheet, if the government says, I need to make your money worthless, and I'm going to make your money worthless, as a CEO of a private corporation, am I going to hold cash? You got to be fucking insane, right? You buy back your stock, and then when you don't have any money when there's an event, you say to the government, I need money so I'm letting these jobs go away. And so you build in systemic risk into the entire system by the requirement to try to grow at all costs. and take interest rates lower and lower and lower. And then we blame the CEOs and everything else, but there's nothing that can happen. And I would ask you this, I'd ask you, do the planes go bankrupt? All that happens is the planes don't go bankrupt, the oil rigs don't go bankrupt, the debt goes bankrupt. And so if you would wipe that out, but if you wiped it out, the whole system would fail. That's the problem. So they keep on injecting more and saving the day and making it worse. But they've created their own problem and they're trapped. And they're trapped. But so now I'm faced as an entrepreneur with a choice. And here's my choice. I either remove labor and drive as fast as I can into technology to be able to go faster, and I use the same printing of money to make me go faster, or I'm a word of the state forever. That's what it looks like. And so what's happening is way more of the economy is becoming a word of the state for forever, and the thriving part of the economy, the FANG stocks and everything else, they're printing money.
Right. Jeff, I have a question for you. How likely do you think that Bitcoin takes over as money of the world, this deflationary money that all of us here wish to see?
100%. So how likely? So I see it, and I'm being a little bit facetious, but I see it as a high probability. Because all of the things that are required in the next sequence of events out of monetary policy, I don't want to say this is going to sound arrogant, but I know what has to happen. I know the sequence of events that has to happen, and it looks just like a business trying to protect itself. And that sequence of events that has to happen, it drives the on-ramp of Bitcoin faster and faster and faster as more people become, essentially as you pull the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz and people realize, what is money in the first place? What is going on? This doesn't look like anything I believed it was. And so that's what, and so Bitcoin will be a beneficiary of that trend, and then it'll be a forcing function, and governments are going to face an important choice.
Right.
Every government will face this choice. Number one, do I peg my currency to it, or do I try to block it? Do I try to close the on-ramps? Now, if I try to close the on-ramps myself, just one country, then because of game theory, another country, I drive an incentive for them to open it up. And so I can't block the on-ramps alone. I need to get together with other governments to try to block the on-ramps altogether. And if that happened, and I suspect there's no way in today's world that could happen, but if you talk to kind of the IMF and what that looks like, they'll try at some point. But there's so much distrust in the system that it'd be really hard to make that work. But assuming that happened, and they kind of blocked enough of the on-ramps altogether to on-ramps, off-ramps, Bitcoin.
You mean
Bitcoin will move? Just go ahead.
Yeah, you mean like all politicians from 180, 190 countries around the world, if they could agree, which
you wouldn't need 180 or 190. You would need the major. You'd need 12, 20.
Okay.
To slow it down enough. But what would happen then is then layer 2 of Bitcoin, the payment layer, the innovation, which is already happening like crazy, would move at record speed to create first an underground economy, and then a forcing function into the greater economy. So either way, highly likely. We're so early in this phase. Like if I talk to If you talk to outside of this community, FinTwit and everything else, which is an incredible community, if you talk outside of this community, you're lucky if you get 1 in 100 that actually understands what we're talking about.
I absolutely, yeah, think you're right, and that's why it really is still so early days. But I would like to say a cheers to the chat and to both of you gentlemen for Jeff Booth calling it's a 100% chance that Bitcoin will succeed. Cheers to that.
Love it.
We love that. Thank you, Jeff. And on that note, also, Plan Marcus, he found the red balloon in the chat and is right up there on the screen, and that is why we're going to the moon. Puppy, you have a question?
Yeah, so everyone, it's interesting. As you get older, everyone has different ways to ingest books nowadays. I guess Audible books are popular. I'm old school. I love the actual physical book. My reading style, I always have a highlighter to hit like the main tenets, of course. And then every couple of years, I go back. I see how much, if I want just a quick overview of the book, I got my highlighted portions, and I'll see if my views have changed. One that I highlighted and put an exclamation point was exactly the thing with the negative rates. The negatives is not only the negative rates, but how the banks will then make it where if you have a cashless society, they could just go straight after your cash when everyone goes out. And after I read that, I remember now I go around. There's many places now talking about this shortage of coins. Do you think this is the beginning of that?
Yeah, so in the book that the IMF, I cited a working paper that talked about interest rates needing to go to -6% on the next on the next not where we are today, next recession. So that's where they need to go right now. But if they did that, everybody would pull their money from the banks and they'd put their money into their mattress. And what we would realize is there is no money in the bank. The entire system is based on credit. And so the mirage would be exposed. But by going to digital currencies and central bank digital currencies, they can pick your pocket without notice, right? So they could make that, they could impose that tax immediately and redistribute wealth. So that's why I say, if you don't, the free market isn't perfect, but it is the best system for that would say the abundance gained from technology would be broadly distributed or more broadly distributed, and it would be fair, not equal, right? And it's hard to get equal because everybody has different skill sets, and those skills are valued by the market in different terms. But it would be fair. And anything against the free market is on a path to totalitarian control. And we're on a path to totalitarian control. And so central bank digital currencies, and what people are going to wake up pretty soon and see on this path on one side is it's so against the free market, and it moves so close to totalitarian control. They're going to start questioning this more, which is going to drive more and more people to Bitcoin. And in Bitcoin community, I'd say this, and that's actually I think why the book, you notice in the book, even though I was an investor in Bitcoin earlier, I didn't talk about Bitcoin until the end as a possible plausible thing. I talked about the system because here's one of the things that people in Bitcoin, I would say, after going down the rabbit hole and understanding, it's hard to unsee. Right, it's hard to unsee the mirage everywhere else, and it looks to people who haven't gone down the rabbit hole, it looks like a religion. It looks like and it scares a whole bunch of people, and it actually pushes a whole bunch of people out because they don't want to go through what is this? And so I wrote the book in a way to kind of expose it at a different level. Right? What was the cause of all of it? Because inflation for a long time was hidden, and governments could get away with the trick because technology wasn't moving as fast as it's moving today. And with technology moving as fast as it's moving, so that's what I talked about in the book: $250 trillion of debt against an $80 trillion global economy. But if technology is moving how fast I expect, how fast I was saying, then you should expect something on the other side to be moving equally fast, right? To be able to kind of stay in equilibrium. And so when you realize that $185 trillion of debt has come in the last 20 years, you have your smoking gun, right? And that was before COVID. And I predicted in the book that had to be exponential to match the exponential decrease in efficiency in technology. And what we're seeing is it's exponential. So the amount of debt or monetary easing has to be that. How much is required? Remember in 2008 when people were saying about 500 billion is a lot.
Yep.
And now we're throwing around $5 trillion like it's nothing. Okay. What's going to happen next is going to be so shocking because it's a requirement. Math calls for it if to keep the existing system in check.
Right, Jeff, Guy has a Publord here has a question for you. I know.
Oh yeah, no. Well, what I can't believe after all this time is everything with Michael Saylor and talking about the melting ice cube is look. There's got to be thousands of CEOs. I know they're smart. I know there's so many smart people in the world. Is it so much that they don't get it, or like when you're talking about the executives at Blockbuster, that their policies that are archaic, they're the Titanic heading to the iceberg, but the rudder is just too small, and they're stuck in their ways and don't see it.
Yeah, and what can they do? So there's a whole bunch of people that even if they thought, what can they do? So beyond that, remember, I am in, or before I wrote the book, I had to write the book and say to my wife, here's a very real conversation that went on with my wife. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur. All of the successful in a bunch of these companies, but I am going to go up against the entire system, including what drives our wealth. And there's a high likelihood that I become a pariah that in doing that, and that people actually don't want me on their boards and everything else because of this. And that it could personally hurt everything else we're doing, but I have to write it anyways. That is the truth. Before I sat down pen to paper, the conversation that I had with my wife, saying that it's so important for society, and it could hurt us, and we could go to zero because of this, but I still have to write it. So what I'm just carrying that forward to say, there's a whole bunch of people on the winning side that actually don't know. They have no clue. I'm friends with them. They think it's still a capitalism system. They think that because they're just super smart at buying houses and real estate and everything else, and they're smarter than everybody else. They have no idea that most of their wealth is gained by manipulation of money. And they look at, and I don't want to say my friends, it's because those people will debate me and understand. But when I pull into view that there's somebody else on the losing side of that coin, it's only then that they go, okay. And so and that's why I go, it's not bad people. It's just they actually believe it. Their kids get into better schools. They have all the money in the world, and it consolidates more and more. And they actually believe that it's because of their ingenuity.
Right. I think, Jeff, to me, that absolutely makes you a freedom fighter, willing to write a book that goes against what established legacy society wants, willing to take a risk for what is better for the world, knowing you could pay a very high price. To me, that makes you a freedom fighter right there. And from Greg Sash, who is one of our steady meme lord hangarounds, he says my mom wants me to tell Jeff hi for her. So there you go.
Hey, Greg, hey, Greg, I still owe you a picture, a close-up picture of the books in behind. It's only about like a quarter of the books, but I know I still owe you that picture. I'm sorry, it's been crazy busy in the last little while.
Do you owe that picture to Greg or?
So Greg asked for a picture of the bookshelf and just what types of books that and because the books I like reading, I read about 50 books a year, and they're not in one specific focus. They're all over the map. So
yeah, and that's how a lot of the very successful people they exactly describe how they read so many books to continue to take in new knowledge and understanding of the world. Before I give another question or the word to Poppy, I want to ask you, Jeff, like describe how you see a transition for people, for governments, etc., from this current regime to what you and I and Poppy believe is 100% going to happen, which is a Bitcoin standard as global money. How do you see this transition? What's going to happen? What process of events?
I spoke on Thursday to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance in Canada, and so I was asked to speak there. And there's no chance governments are going to get this. There's no chance. They can't. They're so far behind the curve on this, and monetary theorists and everything else are saying the same thing. The economy will fall. Everything else you can't do it. You have to print. So imagine being. So it felt like I was screaming into a hurricane. Right? There's no chance. Even that what I say is factual. There is no chance that they can do this. Just about everybody that comes through the door, business, charities, everybody that's coming through the door is saying, I need more money for this, or otherwise this whole thing fails. Everyone. And so it's just a constant stream of, I need more money, I need more money, I need more money, which they have to give, otherwise the thing fails. Not bad people, but I just came away from that talk again, super disillusioned on any sort of first principle discussion on how to fix this. And so I'll get to why change very rarely comes from inside, it comes from outside because of that. Because of that, there's just so much natural momentum for the existing system that even though you're making the system worse, you're bound to do the thing that short-term solves it in the short term, but creates more pain in the long term. What is the way forward? What is the best path forward? The best path forward is for more people, more of the general population, to start adopting Bitcoin, to gain Bitcoin access, because it distributes power totally different. Anybody has a choice, right? You can take a personal freedom and you can take a choice, whether it's $10, $100, $1,000, $500 million, or like Michael Saylor's doing. Every single person has a choice, and the more people that do that, the better the better the system will be on the other side. So at some point, today it's individuals, and move it more and more individuals that are understanding what's happening, and it's just starting to enter the corporate sector. Michael Saylor is a huge breaking point in there, others too, but it's just starting to enter the corporate sector, and then that'll continue, and it'll amplify, and then it'll move into it'll move into the government sector.
Right. And I want to give, because you mentioned Michael Saylor, and I know Poppy has questions for you regarding Michael Saylor. But I just want to ask you this. A lot of people are talking about how because Bitcoin already now is ready as the next money, the alternative we don't necessarily have to go through wars and depression before we get to this new money standard, because it's there already. Do you see a peaceful transition where we will adopt Bitcoin and governments maybe, I mean, they don't really have a choice, and they will just end up with less power because they no longer has the power to dilute money? Will it be a peaceful transition because the solution is ready already, or how do you see it play out?
It's Bitcoin provides the best hope for a peaceful transition. I would say the only hope for a peaceful transition. You can see what's happening in the geopolitical game right now, which is all tied to the same thing. China and the US, or Russia and the US, and what's happening all around the world as people are manipulating their currencies to try to gain control. And then need to. So what in really simply, if you can create money out of thin air and it costs you nothing to create money, and you could get people to play that game, and then you could lend it to other countries for geopolitical gain and get paid back on money you created for nothing and get paid for it, and then move your industry into their economy, wouldn't you do it?
Right.
And so is the same game that US is playing, right, that they've done. Why is China doing the same thing right now? What do you think Belt and Road is? Right. So if every government can say, I can manipulate my money and I can create anything else, and if I can pretend to a whole bunch of people that it's worthless or worth something, and I can get them to transact on my currency, then I control. That's why I say that it moves into totalitarian control. And the base money is such an important thing in all of our lives that we don't pay enough attention to. And Bitcoin changes that dynamic. Bitcoin changes that dynamic massively. Imagine Bitcoin is a small markup today. It's really compared to what there's a network effect happening. It's growing really fast. There's an asymmetric bet on it like crazy. People should be putting money into it. But it is a small market cap compared to what the market cap of money is overall, or the global economy.
I agree. With the extra money or fiat currency printing this year, I think Bitcoin is still at around 0.25% of global monetary value. It's nothing. It's 0.25% of global monetary value. It's still that experiment that we hope will succeed, or that we actually know after today, since you dropped it, no 100% sure likely will succeed. So
it will succeed. It will succeed. I'm careful because I like to speak in probabilities rather than absolutes. So that's when I say 100%. But I believe the probability every day is increasing, pretty staggering, that Bitcoin will succeed.
It's okay, Jeff. I will take the 100% probability any day. Let's call it a probability thing. But I know I know Poppy has a question, because you brought up Michael Saylor. Publord here is a big fan of Michael Saylor, and so am I. Poppy, is it true? Did you have a question there regarding Michael Saylor?
Yeah, well, a lot to I'm trying to think back, because there's so many great topics we're covering, but just quickly, when he's talking about writing a book and talking to his wife, and this is me, spitting in the eye of a lot of what I know. And this goes back to 2008, and it reminds me of the character of Steve Carell in The Big Short, and these guys going around, what do you mean? There's no way the housing market is going to collapse. And, they dig under these collateralized debt obligations, these CDOs, and you talk about a system so corrupt, they go down, they know it's impossible for them to be where they are. When what changed it for me, when they go down to the rating agency and talk to that lady, and they say, this is a bunch of crap. There's absolutely no way for this rating. And she just finally confesses, well, if they don't come to us, they'll just go down the street. And to me, that just summed up the entire system. You know, everyone's just playing this game behind the scenes. By the way, on to, yeah. So one of the things I was talking to Anders about, I said, man, one of the nice things having Jeff Booth on today, we may be one of the first people to get his take on, you know, there's one thing putting cash reserves into Bitcoin, but Saylor dropping news, $400 million more on a loan. What, I mean, is that something you would recommend to other companies? I mean, this guy just doesn't stop.
You know, he knows. So Saylor, I think I was on a different podcast with him. I think I read that he'd lost the most money in a swing at one time as well, and gained the most. Entrepreneurs, when they have conviction on that, they can't understand why the whole world doesn't see it, right? So and Michael Saylor is a great entrepreneur. He's made a ton of money in network effect companies, and he understands what's happening, what we're talking about, constructing a company. Even though MicroStrategy isn't that company, he's competed against those companies for so long, as I have, and everything else, and understood, this is what makes him different. So he understands where to place bets, where to invest, and he is convinced in the bet of Bitcoin, so convinced that with what he has access to in the debt window and everything else, it's a no-brainer. If I personally, is it a no-brainer to say, let's say one of your audience says, I'm going to take out $1 million loan and go into Bitcoin. Now the probabilities of that bet on side and doing really well are very high. But the cost of that bet, remember what I said about if things drop, and the cost of that bet could wipe you out completely. So at a $400 million bet with Michael Saylor, especially how much he's already up in the previous bet on Bitcoin, and a company that generates cash flow, it's kind of a no for him. I understand it. Would I do it? Would I think about it personally? I don't know. It just depends on your risk tolerance.
Right. I think to his defense, the fact that he has operating net positive cash flow of about 50 million a year means that if everything goes and Bitcoin for some magical reason did not do as we expected to do, then he can still, with that 50 million, pay for the interest on that loan. So to him, it's a calculated a bet, one that I have taken on my my own personal level, not to that size, because I can't sell bonds for $400 million, unfortunately.
Not a 400. You didn't make a $400 million bet.
I unfortunately, I feel I'm doing good, but I don't create $50 million worth of positive cash flow being a online ad consultant myself.
I think he's aiming. I think he's aiming towards $1 billion. 425 to start, an extra 50, 400 here, and whatever his personal amount is. The guy's put like $1 billion in. It's stunning.
So again, we're talking about Saylor today. Wait till the next step comes, and Saylor talks about it as well. Wait till Apple comes on. Wait till Square moves more of their money out of treasury into this, which will happen. Wait till Amazon comes on. Wait till I actually believe that that a bunch of what we talked about before on Ant Financial's IPO. We didn't talk about that specifically. But we talked about the geopolitical game on digital currencies that governments have to do. I actually believe that one of the things that shut down Ant's IPO was that. Because because you can imagine, if you get everybody trading on your digital currency in an Alibaba there's a ton of people trading on that. If you decided to change the standard, government they don't have any control. If you just decided to change it to a Bitcoin standard, you could move it immediately. So expect some of those things kind of at the next level in the kind of how that game's played out geopolitically and in countries specifically. But Apple will come onto this. Amazon's going to come onto this, and it's the price. I care way more personally, not about how much money I can make in Bitcoin, but how it sets up for the future of humanity that is much more fair. That's why I do these shows, right? That's why I wrote the book. That's why I care. I have enough wealth. I don't need any more wealth. I didn't do any of this to be able to make more money. I understand the game. I hope people make a ton of money. I hope all the people that are in this, because it's part of the game, that it has to increase in value to be able to drive more and more people on. But my bigger reason for it is it resets fairness and equity in the world.
I just have to say I get emotionally here because I so relate to what you're saying, Jeff, about we're in this for humanity. That was the reason I found Bitcoin, was because I questioned central banks and I felt somehow they're ruined. They wiped out the middle class. I didn't know why or how they did that. But that brought me to Bitcoin indirectly. But I honestly get emotional and love it when you say that you're in this for humanity. True freedom fighter. Puppy, over to you.
No, I don't. You know, when he says, "Yeah, I have pretty shows," but man, the only thing that fell faster than the dollar this week is Jeff going from the House of Commons to the Toxic Happy Hour show. What a drop! Yeah,
Hey, I was excited about this. When you see the memes, my kids are looking at your memes that you're creating, and they're saying,
yeah.
"Who are you, Dad? What is this?" Like this. So,
yeah, you're saying are these are the smartest people in the world that know Bitcoin? This is what you get? Yeah.
Hey, this is my type of people. This is
once again, everyone in the chat and Puppy, cheers. This is to you, Jeff. We love Jeff. I thought I loved Jeff before today, but even more so learning about he's willing to give up personal gains for doing what is right for humanity. Cheers to you, Jeff. So, but honestly, because I was a little nervous with all the memes going out. I'm thinking, okay, he's smart. He knows we're just messing around and having fun.
Yeah.
But did it scare you or make you nervous about appearing on the Toxic Happy Hour?
No. Like, I was looking forward to it. When I say you're my people, you're my people.
We love it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, shout out to behind Toxic Happy Hour really is a great group of people. It's on the screen is Puppy and I. Puppy started doing memes this summer. He pulled together a great group of memers, RDC or RDBTC, Plan Marcus, who always finds the red balloon. We've got Hodl from South America, and Greggy himself that you already know. Great people.
There's so many good people. I see Marty Owls. Puppy is a math guy at Marty's Owl, and there's so many great people in this community. Now sometimes that community fights against itself and everything else, but I would say generally they do so out of trying to get this right. And so there's a whole bunch of, but it's a pretty incredible community.
Right. And we have a guy who has appeared, a pro bowler, as I like to call him, Lucky Moksana, that I have been introduced to by through Puppy, who is playing football, as we call football, because we use feet, unlike American football, where you use the hands, which essentially is handball. But he's a pro bowler. He plays at Tampa Bay Rowdies. He's saying that Barca versus Juve is live right now, but Toxic Happy Hour is greater than Champions League.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
Mind blow.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Lucky.
Yeah.
Holy.
I can't believe we're doing this puppy with Jeff Booth, and he's getting down with the
Yeah.
crew here. Love it.
So yeah, I got another question, which is interesting. Is you know, when you start a few years ago, all you hear about is hyper Bitcoinization, and there's going to be this great meme exchange. Sailor had a different approach that really changed my mind. Of basically, I'm just going to hold it for 100 years, and going forward, because of the tax implications, you just leverage it. You just leverage your Bitcoin and never sell. What do you think about that? How does that
So I
look going
think
forward?
so. I buy to hold. So I do the same thing. I buy to hold, and I said this on a podcast the other day that I don't know if I'll ever sell. Now,
Yeah.
if you said that broadly to everybody and nobody sold, then I think you might hurt the Bitcoin case. Because I don't think that actually will happen. I think some people will hold and like you hold a house and you take a loan against your house to make an investment, right? So Sailor's case makes a lot of sense, and I probably would do this. I probably look at the same thing, but at some sort of value exchange, people will use this as a value exchange, right? And it'll distribute Bitcoin out into the greater society. And so I think both points are important to look at, because if you just imagine the people that own Bitcoin today, no one else owns that Bitcoin, then it can never be a medium of exchange. It can never move into the second layer and everything else. So I suspect both are going to happen.
I have it. It's actually my pinned tweet. Is the meme of the guy at the table on campus, and I said, I'm never going to sell my Bitcoin. Change my mind, because I will. Oh, look, at some point, everyone has their price, but it's curious
Exactly.
as what will that price be? Are we still denominating in dollars, or is this at the point where you're looking more at the purchasing power of Bitcoin and that you will give it up? It's interesting, but for now, there's absolutely no reason for it, just from not only the tax implications, but the future growth potential. Why in the hell would you ever think of selling?
Yes, same here. Now, I saw a question about technology moving faster or slower.
It's on the screen. It's on the screen right now from Tahini's.
Yeah, so it'll move faster, and in a Bitcoin economy, will drive faster. There'll be a short pace of change where it could grow slower, and then, but again, why would I invest in a whole bunch of technology companies? And I more so the ones that I can spend time and make sure that they're kind of on a track to be able to invest in a bunch of technology companies. And why wouldn't I, if it was a bunch of savings, if I could get a rate of return, if I believed in that company, why would that change? It won't change. It won't change a thing. So whether you had Bitcoin, if you had Bitcoin and you said, okay, Bitcoin's going to be this next year, but this company I'm invested in can be 10x that, you would make that bet too. It won't change. The rate of technology is exponential, and what that means for society, I can tell you, some of the companies that I'm involved in and what they mean that people can't see today, or what's coming. It's technology is a base layer today. It's a base layer of everything, and everything's being built on top of that, and what that means for a lot of companies. They're not prepared for what that means. But what it means for entrepreneurs that are kind of solving some of those problems and providing more value is a staggering rate of growth, a staggering benefit to society.
Absolutely, love it, Jeff. You mentioned here that, and we know that you're involved in many companies. Everybody knows that in a Twitter DM chat, it's not an online conversation, so you answer when you can. And I love yesterday when I was sending you a message, after an hour or so, you answered and you even apologized, where I feel that there's no need to apologize. But I apologize. It just came out of another board meeting. So, but I'm curious about that, Jeff, because you are involved on the board level of many companies because of the results and understanding of the world that you have. To what extent does boards around the world or the companies that you're involved with, and to what extent do they talk about Bitcoin as a corporate treasury reserve asset?
So starting, and this is a cool function. So if you control, like Tahini's restaurant, right? If you control the entire thing, you make that change as fast as you can, and you denominate Preston, right? You denominate your business coin, and you buy more and more and more. That's happening at kind of the smaller businesses, and it's happening at an increasing rate at the smaller businesses. At the bigger businesses that are kind of public companies or a bunch of money on the balance sheet and everything else, now you have a risk tolerance, and so it's a little slower there. I'm an advocate, but what ends up happening is you get a cover your ass type of scenario where people are scared to make that bet. And actually, that's why Michael Saylor could make that bet. He owns a bunch of the company, right? And he can make that he can make that bet. So the more that you own of the company, and the more that you understand what you're doing, the more it looks like an entrepreneurial venture, the more likely it happens first. As some of those people make that change and do it, then it paves the way for the next layer to come into it. So that's happening right now, and in every boardroom, there's a real conversation about it. Not it's done yet, but there's investigation. There's it becomes a real part of the conversation.
Right. So before I hand it over to Puppy, because I know he has another great question, but Jeff, do you see any of the FANG companies potentially allocating any of their balance sheet reserve assets, fiat currency, to Bitcoin next year, or is that way further out? What's your expectations? Because if we look at the dollar reserves of Apple and Amazon and Google, Netflix and Facebook, right there is more than the entire market cap of Bitcoin today. Hence, it's early days. What's your expectations for these companies?
I expect Amazon and Apple to do it to get onto Bitcoin next year.
All right, and
so I think with acceleration you're going to see in this that it turns, when you say cover your ass and everything, so again, the more that people understand that the entire economy that we're based on is due to printing money, and the more you're going to devalue that asset, the more you're going to devalue money, then it becomes incumbent on boards to protect shareholder value. The risk moves, and so today you could put your head in the sand and you could say, okay, I can hedge my exchange risk on different currencies. I could hold this currency, and I have a natural hedge. It's becoming harder and harder to make that argument. Now, remember, Bitcoin is still a small market cap, but with Saylor on board, with others, and as it grows, as you go into a $1 trillion market cap, $1.5 trillion market cap, it becomes very hard to say that same thing at a board when you know that your cash is being devalued.
Yeah,
it's really difficult to make that argument. So I expect the race. They're all going to come on.
Right. Sounds great. And before I give the word to Publord here, I can just say that I absolutely recognize how fast the ice cubes are melting, and you need to move that value to something that can store value, unlike fiat currency. Publord, the word and the floor is yours, my man.
Well, I don't know why you're ruining that drink with ice. Jeez, man, you got to get up with it. Dear God. Are
Hey
you
Jeff,
kidding me?
hey Jeff, I cut out the diet Pepsi that I was putting in this Kentucky apple juice, but these guys are still giving me a hard time. I like it cold. Look, I'm from a Nordic country. I'm from Denmark. We like everything really, really cold.
Yeah.
I think, including our drink. Pablo, you had a question, or should I just mute you
Yeah.
again?
No, we're good. So, hey, a great gift I got from a friend. They had these like little silver bullets that you freeze. They're shaped of a bullet that you would freeze. So look out for those. Something that's I think it's made of I don't know what kind of metal, but you freeze it, keeps your drink cold, no water. But yeah, anyway. So look at because I know you're on all these boards, and I think I was asking Brady when he was on Brady Swenson. Back in April, we all got our stimulus checks here in the U.S. You know, pretty nice, $1,200, whatever. And just as an experiment, I want to see, what if the government just printed and bought Bitcoin? So out of that experiment, at that time, Bitcoin was at $7,000, I believe. So I'm laughing because my stimulus check, I just piled into Bitcoin. It was like 0.17 Bitcoin that I was able to purchase. And obviously now I think it's over 3,000. I don't know what the worth is. Do you have any stories of a CEO that, unlike Sale or these others that have small companies, don't have control of the board and wanted to go all in at 6,000, at 7,000, and are now just
So what they're doing it personally. So
okay.
A friend of mine is I won't say which one, and I'll try to mask.
Sure.
But it's about a $10 billion hedge fund, and he's a very good friend, and personally he's been in this for a while. To make the jump to the hedge fund being invested in it, which still is not. You had to do a whole bunch of things, and the market had to look like everything else, and it's now going to move. But there's a whole bunch of people that are making trades themselves personally because they know where it's going. And now moving it up to the company level. That's kind of why I said, if you're an entrepreneur, if it's an entrepreneurial, if it was Steve Jobs at Apple, this would have already been done.
Yeah, I love that.
It would have already been done because entrepreneurs are not afraid to make bold bets when they know it's right, and they're not afraid of. So to think about the opposite side to the sailor question. Here's the thing that I respect about him. When he came out with this, he came out prepared to. Now it's gone the right way on him. But he was prepared to hold no matter what, and he was prepared to take the pain from the market and he bought out a bunch of his shareholders, telling them that this is what he was going to do at a higher price, being prepared to do that. So remember when I said what I was prepared to when I wrote the book? When you have conviction on something, you have conviction. You go after it, right? And so he was prepared for all the downside, all of the people taking, like early on when he did this, did you see some of the analyst coverage? It was just like, now, not the Bitcoin community, they loved him, but the analyst coverage, some of the analysts were all over him talking about how a shitty CEO he was and everything else. And you have to be prepared in a public limelight as a CEO to go through that war. It is not fun, right? But that's actually what I love about the conviction of that. He was totally prepared to do that.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely with you. Yeah, you got to prepare to suffer these slings and arrows. And what they remind me of is when he was doing, I guess, that CNBC interview, and this lady just not stopping with, well, are you a Bitcoin company or are you, business intelligence company? And she couldn't let it go. She could not let it go.
Did he ever do a good job on that?
He crushed her.
You don't want to be an interviewer when he killed that interview.
I mean, that beatdown was just about as good as the Q4 beatdown he gave. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anders,
Yes.
over to you. Over to
No,
you, man.
I mean, I'm looking at the chat. We have all the great people in the chat having lots of comments and fun there. And yeah, I mean, I muted you for a long time, Puppy, so I could get all my questions in. That worked well. And I just want to say, I could look at looking at the live viewer numbers throughout this stream. It's kind of gone up even on a parabolically, even on a logarithmic charge. We now have 37 live viewers, and we appreciate all of you out there watching this. And I want to remind everyone, if you think this is about alcohol and things like that, no, it's about this book written by Jeff Booth, Why Deflation is the Key to an Abundant Future. And a great book. Puppy and I both finished it late last night, I think, but we have enjoyed it for many days.
It's about alcohol. It's about alcohol.
Yeah, that is the show. That is the show. And
the price of tomorrow for Anders will be a hangover. That's his price.
Yeah, so we're gonna do Puppy, I think we can say that we're gonna do an after party here of today's show with UI and Greggy. What time was it? Florida time, East Coast time?
8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern. You and I and Greggy will go online and talk about the knowledge bombs dropped by Jeff Booth right here today. Looking forward to that. All right. So, Jeff, if there's anything else you want to share about a future of Bitcoin as the global deflationary money, we would love to hear it. I know your time is precious and valuable. There's probably 7 boards right now waiting for you to enter the room and tell them what to do.
No, it's this has been awesome, and a huge thanks to you guys. I see Daniel Prince on here, who's just awesome in the community as well. Brady, there's just so many people on here. Keep on what you're doing. Keep in mind that most people don't know as much as you do about this, about what's happening. And so, I would say this: if we know on one side it requires manipulation, and we know on the other side it doesn't, then that fight will likely be the greatest fight of our time. And it's at a level that is bound to confuse a whole bunch of people. And so,
absolutely.
So if and there's a whole bunch of people confused about the fundamental what's happening today in society. And it doesn't make them bad people. They're just super confused. And they're asking the wrong question because they're measuring the system by this system today, and that system is only going to get worse. So for all of the Bitcoin community, it's really important to come back to that fundamental premise. I would ask really simply, tell me how the existing system works without manipulation.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. The current system is an absolute destroyer of wealth. It's the current system of money printing, of fiat currency printing, is creating the wealth divide because it pumps asset prices. The rich owns assets like real estate and stocks.
But again, you know all of this, right? So if you want somebody to actually investigate it for themselves, or if you want some monetary theorists to come up to ask them the question, tell me how the existing system works without manipulation. Just tell me. And if you have an answer there that doesn't require manipulation, then I'm happy to jump on any podcast anytime to Stephanie Kelton or anybody to deal with this this question. And if somebody has an answer that is a reasonable answer, I'm happy to listen. But I see no path. And so if you don't have a reasonable answer, you can see where this heads.
I totally agree. I think my problem is that people, including my mother, who's scared of Bitcoin because she sees me as a radical believer, they actually have been taught to think that manipulation by the government for you is a good thing, which it's not. But I'm afraid that people think that manipulation is not necessarily bad.
But again, when you get them to first say, "Okay, I'm cheering for manipulation," now you can expose the truth. Now you can expose the next level of this and measure the outcomes. Measure the outcomes of manipulation. The outcomes of manipulation are the wealth divide that you see.
Right.
And so unless you get them to the top of the pyramid first, you're arguing in kind of the bulk. So many people are confused. They're so confused that they think that they're asking the wrong question. So why I say that is such a critical point is, what side of the lever on here? Do you believe in manipulation? Do you believe that money should be printed out of thin air forever and way more of it? If you believe that, okay, then why do you believe that? Right? Because the next why do you believe that? You have to believe, if you believe that, you have to believe that government is better at telling you what to do than you.
Right.
That's if you break down this in a logical consequence of both sides of this, you can easily see it. And too many people are caught in the middle of it. And the arguments are so hollow that but I see the arguments on Twitter and I just go, well, like, what? Like, how can you now? I get it. I understand how you could think like that because you've been conditioned to think like that. But so it's a better starting point.
Right. And Jeff, that's why this book in hard copy is what I will share with. No, I just enjoy books better than on a hard copy. I know they do set me back more sats, but for me it's really the love of the medium to have it in a hard copy. And this is the type of book that will to me solve that. I can share this with my mother because first it explains the situation, and not until page 201 out of 208 is Bitcoin even mentioned. And I think that's important. I think it's really important for people to even be open to the fact that Bitcoin fixes this, that Bitcoin solves the problems. They first need to go through what the problems are, and only then are they ready to see Bitcoin as the medicine of the cancerous diseases that the world are facing today.
Yeah, that was the funny thing when you come in. I'm always curious, and I'll ask this question. Before 2008, I had read The Creature from Jekyll Island about the founding of the Federal Reserve, which really opened my eyes to things. Of course, I'd always read Ayn Rand and getting a rundown on government, just the levels of bureaucracy that will just destroy any type of economy. So those two things really, as I always say, it plows the fields. So it's hard when you go out, and it's great when you write a book like this. Unfortunately, you have to plow fields for people, like you say, 208 pages of this is what's wrong. When you would, hopefully you could just say, you know what, if people just had this understanding already, had read these books, would have saved you a lot of time and effort. So your breakdown in there, it was fantastic. I was going to ask you the interest rate. I've heard, even Saylor's take what he thinks is, I think, close to 20%. The true. What do you think is the true inflation rate? I'm sorry, interest, but the true inflation rate. What do you think it is?
I agree with Saylor. It has to be able to save your money today, or to be able to overcome that hurdle rate. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 20% a year. I think that's what. And keep in mind, more printing has to happen. The printing that's happened today, no wonder it's mostly gone through society. It's just been paying people to pay for artificially high prices. It hasn't created an economy. Like, there's no greater economy. That's the point. That's the point. What new jobs, what like long-term employment gains where employment it starts to be able to demand higher prices. What has happened out of all of this manipulation? It's just filling a hole. It's just filling a hole of trying to keep prices higher and getting a whole bunch of people to pay for those high prices. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So expect a lot more. Expect a lot more insanity.
Right. Yeah, we expect insanity from centralized authorities that believe they know better. I love the fact, Jeff, I can see your eyes are checking out the chat, because we do have the best chat and the best people in the space right there in the chat. But Jeff,
so I gotta clear something out. Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Let's clear something out from the chat. Answer questions.
My mom is on the line, and so somebody else is Sheila, Jeff's wife, and no, that's my mom.
Oh, Sheila is your mom, or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, she's here tonight, or today, or this morning, or?
I guess so. I guess so.
Puppy, we managed to pull in Jeff's mother even to
You
this stream.
You brought in my mom. You must have done something right.
Well, yeah. Mind our P's and Q's on this one, then. Hello, Mrs. Booth. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Cheers, Mrs. Booth. Your son is doing Lord's work on this planet. Willing to sacrifice. I know you don't want to hear that part, but to better the world for humanity and create a world of deflation and abundant tomorrow. We love that. Jeff, so at least one last question here that comes to mind. In a deflationary world, I see a lot more than 0.1% of the world being financially independent, because when prices go down, it takes a lot less to become financially independent, with products and services going towards really zero as the cost that they're being sold at. When we let that deflation run, then I think that double-digit % of people will be living a very comfortable life, and not like today, especially what I see in LA, where I have one of my best friends has a law degree from a top 2 legal university in LA, yet he, like many others, have the financial gun to his head every single month. I think the future with deflation will bring a lot more happiness and financial independence to normal people, even middle class. How do you see that world of deflation in the future?
That's exactly what I see. The economics is about scarcity, not about value. The air you're breathing is free. Right? Your photos are free today. We use trillions a day. You take way more photos, they're free. Right? What happened with technology is it frees your time, and you get way more from us. That's the point. So much more from us that we can't even comprehend what that looks like. Can't even comprehend it. So what would your life look like if you had everything you wanted, and it kept on coming down in price, and your time was free? That's the future we're moving to, one way or another. Now, it might be an ugly mess on the way through to that future, but assuming we can get there, that's the way that capitalism should work. That's the way a free market should work. It's a
yep.
And people think those big businesses can block other entrepreneurs. Good luck. Good luck. If you have high margins and there's a whole bunch of people not working, and there's one industry with high margins, you have the wrath of the world's entrepreneurs trying to attack your value proposition to reduce price, and they're only successful if they provide value to society. It reduces prices everywhere to a function that we can't even comprehend.
Right. Publord.Hodl, I just want to say, I think we have finally made it with our amateur, non-formal pop show here. Sheila Booth says, it's on the screen right now, loving this show, way more fun than many. I don't think we can get any higher than that. And I think it gives us a chance to get Jeff Booth back on. And from Camilla, who is actually, Jeff, the first female ever to, after many, many months, enter the chat of Toxic Happy Hour. She has a question for you. As an author, aside from his book, what other books should people read to understand what is going on with money today and what is to come?
Oh, there's not a lot connecting the dots. If you read Why Information Grows from which is a really great years.
I only have one apple juice a day.
Which is an information book, but what's happening to information and why it grows and what's kind of a logical consequence of that. I think it's a really great book on how fast things are moving. But connecting the dots, that's been the problem. It's like the singularity folks who I'm good friends with that talk about. I'm going to give you an example here. I was at a conference where somebody was talking about artificial general intelligence, and maybe we're 5 years away, maybe we're 10 years away, maybe we're 15 years away, maybe we're 50 years away. It actually doesn't matter, because all the path along the way to there is more and more deflationary. People assume it's a light switch, and one day we're going to have robots and artificial and general intelligence that does everything. And until that day, it's going to look like this. It's insanity to think that, right? It gets better and better and better on the way there. It's more and more deflationary. But I was at this where one of the top thinkers in this, that is kind of the singularity folk and everything else, actually said this: I'm creating this artificial general intelligence company, and it's a $10 trillion opportunity. And I'm going, you are creating a technology that replaces all human labor forever, and it's a $10 trillion opportunity. How does that go together? Like come on. And that's the point. The systems together. They're talking a silo over here, talking in a silo over here, and it's the connection of those that's really important. And there's not a lot of books, unfortunately, on this. There's a lot of books on Creature of Jekyll Island. It's a great book. It's on how monetary policy works and banking institutions work to be able to do this. And by the way, for a long time, you could actually hide that fact in the system because technology wasn't moving as fast as it is today. So people didn't notice. But now with technology moving as fast as it's trying to bring down prices, wait, you got to do more and more and more of it faster, and people notices what's happening. A lot of great books on this. So it forces you to ask different types of questions. Like, one of the questions I've thought about a lot right now, and so forgive me if this isn't cogent. I've had 3 beers.
Anything you say, Jeff, is welcome here, because we are learning. You can say whatever you want.
Well, we'll delete the entire thing after we're done.
No, we're not.
And I've said it on a couple of podcasts, but probably not in a cogent way. So the number one issue of our time, there's so many people that believe the number one issue of our time is the environment. Is that fair?
Right.
And there's a bunch of governments, Paris Accord, Canadian, tons of money to solve climate change. Right? Is it fair? Biden's going to come in, going to create tons of money to solve climate change, right? And now remember, creating money to solve climate change is important to distinction. And right now in climate change, you have solar energy out-competing oil and other forms of energy. In other words, it's lower price. And it's going lower and lower every year. And so what is that doing? What that's doing is you're adding energy at a lower cost. And it's pushing down the price of higher cost of energy because you have additional capacity at lower cost. Now project that forward. That projected forward, lower and lower cost of energy and more of it has to be deflationary. Has to be more and more deflationary and additive to all of the other deflation. So what has to happen as a result of that deflation to keep the inflationary monetary system intact? You have to debase currency further. So in other words, by debasing currency further, you have an order of magnitude higher impact on global than letting the entrepreneur talent and letting the world kind of, because you're not allowed to let prices fall, inflation to take hold. So you have to keep debasing. So isn't it disingenuous when governments talk about the number one issue of our time being global warming? They are an order of magnitude higher problem in global warming. It can't from within the system. It's impossible to fix within the system because nullify all of the entrepreneurial talent by printing money faster, because you have to grow over top of that. And I haven't seen one person ask that question. I haven't seen one. We hear the climate debate all the time. There's a whole bunch of people that are very much wanting governments to step in and fix the climate problem without a realization that they are the climate
problem. Right. Poppy, I think you have a further question for Jeff here.
Oh no, I absolutely agree. One thing I wanted to bring up, and because I've listened to a lot of the podcasts, and I believe it's the one with the folding paper and how long it takes to get, or how far after so many folds, how it gains in height.
Let's have Jeff ask the question, because it's really. I mean, there's things in this book on. I'll give the word back to you, Poppy. I'm sorry, I just cut in right here. But there's things in this book on not only game theory, artificial intelligence, but also, I guess, exponential growth, compound interest of technology development, etc. That are really, really interesting. Poppy, back to you.
No, because it's a great thought experiment, and you don't realize, well, one, even as thin as a piece of paper is, that I believe it's within 50 folds. Well, which is it's only theoretical, because after 7, I don't think you can do it anymore. After 50, you can reach to the sun. And the hard thing to get about this whole experiment for me is that's distance. We understand easily. We understand this easily. How do you equate this to technology and the change in speed and how quickly technology changes? Because now you're going from distance to speed and the amount of things you can do, which is hard to quantify.
But think about that. So that's why I use that example of 33 folds or 34 folds, and we're moving to 35 fold in two years. So Gartner has created the hype cycle, right? And it's to measure business of where they are in the cycle. And it's actually the exact same thing we're talking about. The first fold, second fold, so innovation out of a lab at a university and everything else. First fold, second fold, something happens. Where quantum is today. People are talking about, and then all of a sudden people start to see, oh wow, this could have an impact. And you have this massive hype cycle on the early folds. And it doesn't live up to expectations. So remember 3D printers?
Yeah, of course.
3D printers. I'll bet you most people listening to think of 3D printer as I print this plastic widget and they might print this plastic from what the hype cycle of 3D printers are compared to the expectations of that hype cycle. And then it collapses. So there's a giant, because, and it's the same thing, that folding pattern are the really thin folds. And then that hype cycle collapses, and that's just our relationship with the technology. Because we overestimated in the early folds, and then we underestimated in late folds. So it's not technology, it's our perception of the technology. And it keeps folding, and it keeps folding. And then as much as we overestimate early folds, we underestimate it later by such a staggering amount. And so look at all the internet titans. So look at all the titans of industry in 1995. Look them up. Look at what they were saying about the internet. Missing that pattern. Look at the titans of industry today, who saw that pattern, and look at what it took. Right, all of the leaders in the world are the technology companies sitting on top of that pattern. A whole bunch. Paul Krugman, leading economist, said in 97 or 98, said the internet will make no bigger impact to our economy than the fax machine. Like it's laughable, right? Like we laugh, but again, it's normal. It's normal. We all do it. You're doing it right now. Everyone in here right now on this call is doing it in our intelligence. They're doing it on 3D printing. They're doing it on a whole bunch of other stuff. And I can tell you, it's happening at a rate that people cannot believe. They can't see because they don't experience it every day. And it keeps on doubling, and it has profound consequences everywhere.
Yeah, you know what's funny is it's pretty cool. In 2 days, we had their Gigi coming on the show, and man, if you want someone that had the smooth, imagine him doing a book review or reading your book on Audible tape, because he's got the silky smooth voice and all this. What I'm laughing at is, I know, we love Daniel Prince, or Princey, if he's out there. So I'm listening on a podcast today. Their Gigi's on Princey, I believe it was in the early spring. He had just had his first child. Congratulations, by the way. And what I liked is he had a thought experiment for Princey to figure out. And it was basically, listen, if you have a pond and you put one lily in that pond and you double it, okay, up to 100 times, at what point is the pond half full? At what point is a pond
49.
half full? What's that?
Yeah, 49. So if you got doubled it, yeah.
No, for 100. So it was 99.
Oh, for 100.
Yeah. Yeah, which is it's mind blowing because, like, with the folding to the moon thing, our mind, we're just not designed to think of this. We're not designed to think this way. To think after 99, that final double is better than the first 99. It's crazy.
So that's what's happening right now in the world, and people that even after they read my book, they say, okay, now I understand exponentials, and I don't ask the reason for. I don't set it out for that reason. Yes, it shocks a whole bunch of people, but I don't ask it for that reason. What the reason for it that I ask it is you, every one of us always miss that pattern. Always. Yet that is the pattern that is running on technology. So if we always miss it, or we're really inclined to miss it, then what can you do to be able to help yourself in spotting it, and what does that mean? And realizing that we're just as infallible as anybody else, right? We're really bad at human beings. Not to say I'm smarter, you're smarter, because what will happen is people now think it's a parlor trick. They think, oh, now I know the answer, and they think they know the answer everywhere else, but they fail, like your 99 question, they fail on the next one. And right, I use to my friends. I use the example with what Elon Musk does to create value is he sells you something today, knowing this, that he can't deliver today, and he charges you something today to be able to deliver 2 years from now against this exponential curve. That's his value. That's the value. And what creates the pain in that as well is he can be off a little bit, and it can drive in it can drive into missed expectations. A whole bunch of people can take. But what he's playing is this pattern of this, and he's doing it in rocket ships, and he's doing it in Tesla. He's doing it all around, but he's playing this pattern. And if you understand that pattern and what things cost tomorrow, most people take a linear example of what's today forecasted forward. And in a world that's exponential, it's a huge flaw.
Amen. Amen. Puppy, several quarters back, Daniel Prince had a kind of a question for you. He said he's trying to keep up with your drinking, but he is FKD up. I don't know what that means, but I've seen a lot of Guinness. I've seen a lot of Guinness go through you, Puppy. What number are we at the moment? Oh wait! Oh! I got to unmute you there. I got to unmute you. What kind of what number Guinness are we on?
No, not only did Jeff's mother join the podcast, so did mine. Thank you for asking how much beer I've had. Seriously, you know what's amazing on this podcast is the questions get deeper the longer it goes. I don't know.
Amen. Yeah,
a few.
It's kind of like a pub night.
It's what? Sorry, Jeff.
It's kind of like a pub night.
It is. This is what it is. This is guys getting together at the pub, talking about Bitcoin and life and having a good time. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah. And our moms. Not just
our moms. Yeah.
And our moms. We respect and treasure our moms.
So, and that's one of the things we loved is part of the joke I told him earlier. I said we should have really switched it up on Jeff, and we both show up in a suit and tie for the podcast, and then he's the odd man out. But look, man, you know what? Everyone has their standard. Lavera, Peter McCormick, Daniel Prince. They make the rounds, which is great. And we just like to kick it, and you find out other things beyond what they usually talk about. We always like to hit what your specialty is, of course. But yeah, this is the best time in the world to find out.
This is Greg said this is 100% as advertised. It is for me too. This is a lot of fun, guys.
Awesome. And on that note, I definitely think we should, although I haven't seen Sheila Booth in the chat for a while, but still, if she watches it on playback, let's raise the glass to Jeff's mother, pay our respects, because without the mothers, we're nothing, to Jeff's mother, Sheila. Cheers. And go ahead, Poppy.
No, so the rest of your day now, you're off to a good start. You go in the pirate costume and
I need a nap and then and then back.
Nap and then boardroom. Sorry guys, I was late.
We should wrap it up pretty quick here.
Yeah.
All right.
We're good.
Thanks for bringing that up, Poppy. But it's been almost 2 hours. We've managed to keep Booth locked in the pub here for almost 2 hours. Jeff, thank you so much for joining the Toxic Happy Hour, where we are toxic towards scams that delay the future of deflation and abundance. I think that might be a new intro to the show. So I would love to hear, first of all, I hope to see you back on Toxic Happy Hour again. I hope to meet you in person sometime. I don't know if you're coming to Bitcoin 2021 in LA next year. If anyone wants to come, we have a non-referral commission link down below where people get 21% if they use the what's it called, the code or the promo code Toxic21. We don't make any money. We just want to meet people. But Jeff, let's give the final words to you.
Yeah,
First
I
off,
just, you guys, this was a ton. This was a ton of fun, and a huge thanks to this whole community and everything else for being who you are. It'd be great to be able to make a lot of money, but it's way more important to make a difference. And so thanks for having me on. This was a blast, a total blast.
awesome. Poppy, over to you before I do the sign out. Final words from you, and a potential thanks to Jeff for joining the Toxic Happy Hour.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for like I say, but let's be honest, what's more fun, drinking water in front of Parliament, or a few beers with some of the plebs that understand Bitcoin. No, thank you for joining us, man. What's funny is everyone in this chat room has probably listened to you on another 5 to 10 different podcasts and know your background, and they're all here, not just for us, but mostly for you. So that's thanks again.
It's for you guys. This is
yeah.
I can't wait to do this in person in a real pub sometime with you.
Oh, like I said, when I met Andrew and I, we met about 2 years ago, and that's just it. We just, over a beer or two or on the phone, we just kept talking and talking, and we had no agenda, but we just thought it was fun, and we just said, you know what, let's just put it online. And the Bitcoin community is fantastic. Anyone you ask to, hey, do you mind just coming on our show for a bit, have a beer and a talk? Every single one has said yes. So, hey, thanks for taking time out of your busy day, obviously. And I'll leave it at that. Buy Bitcoin, man.
Yeah. So sign out for me. As Greggy says, I think Anis is crying. Absolutely. And as let me see if I can find the chat is moving quick right now. Brady, where you at?
Labra Hodl.
Yeah,
shout out to Labra Hodl saying thanks.
Brady's saying Anis is all choked. I am because Jeff is a big idol of mine. Because he describes the how and why of inflation, the deflation that all of us in Bitcoin are looking forward to. So check out his book in hard copy. Is a lot of wonderful things to learn about game theory, exponential growth, and so many more things. And it's even worth sharing with your family because the word Bitcoin is not mentioned until page 201 out of 208. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. And when you go back to the boardrooms, tell them to drink more alcohol and buy Bitcoin. It's really so. I will spend the rest of my day pinching myself in the arm on my couch as I try to sober up. It'll probably take 7-8 hours. And furthermore, thank you, Jeff. And yes, I am crying because I found out that not only, I thought a lot of Jeff before this stream, but I really appreciate the kind of things you put forward, Jeff, and the fact that I can personally relate to that. You're willing to make sacrifices yourself to do good for humanity, and that's what I really love. So on that, as a final note, I hope I remember to say everything. Thank you for you guys out there watching. Thanks in the chat for making it the best chat in the space. And for everyone ever watching this, please be careful storing more value in fiat currency because it is known to lose value. Don't store more value in fiat currency than you're willing to lose because that is a built-in policy. It is going to wipe out your savings. Consider buy Bitcoin and read this book in hard copy. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it.